The ship graveyard floated in silence above Earth. Hundreds of old human vessels drifted there, waiting to die. Their metal bodies were dark and cold. Nobody wanted them anymore. The galaxy had moved on to better things, newer things, alien things. Captain Ji-won Park walked through the orbital station, and nobody looked at her. The aliens passed by without a glance. To them, she was just another human. Nothing special. Nothing important. She had once commanded entire fleets. Now she was here to fly garbage to the scrapyard. The station smelled like oil and recycled air. Ji-won's boots made heavy sounds on the metal floor. She was 52 years old and tired. Her uniform was old with patches covering the holes. The medals were long gone, sold or thrown away. She didn't remember which. At docking bay 17, her crew waited. 5 people. All of them were broken in some way, just like her. The job posting had been clear. Fly one old ship to the breaker yards beyond Mars. Get paid. Ask no questions. Perfect for people with nowhere else to go. Min-ho Kim stood near the airlock, grinning like a fool. He was 38 and loved old machines more than people. His hands were covered in engine grease.
He had volunteered for this job, which made him either brave or crazy.
Probably crazy, Captain, Min-ho called out. Wait until you see her. The Resilience. 800 meters of pure human engineering. They don't make them like this anymore. They don't make them because they're junk, said Boramlee. She was the youngest, only 24. Her fingers moved across a datapad without looking. This ship is 40 years old. It's slow, it's ugly, and we're flying it to its death, Dae Ho-yoon laughed. The old Marine stood with his arms crossed. At 45, he had seen more battles than anyone else in the crew. A scar ran down his face from his eye to his jaw. He didn't smile often, but when he did, it was never friendly. Everything dies eventually, Dae Ho said. Ships, people, empires. At least this one gets to die useful. Hana Choi looked up from her medical kit. She was 29 and still believed the galaxy could be good. Her eyes were kind, which made her dangerous in a different way. People who still had hope were unpredictable. Can we just board already? Hana asked. I want to see what we're working with. Ji-won nodded. They walked through the airlock and into the Resilience. The ship was bigger inside than it looked. The corridors were wide, built for cargo and crews of hundreds. Now it was empty except for 5 people. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Everything was old. The walls were scratched and dented. The lights flickered. The air tasted stale. But the ship was solid. Human ships were built like tanks, made to take damage and keep flying. The aliens built their ships sleek and fast. Humans built theirs to survive. Min-ho disappeared immediately, heading down to the engine room. He was talking to himself or maybe to the ship. With him, it was hard to tell the difference. Ji-won led the others to the bridge. The command center was huge. Stations for 20 people, but only 5 chairs were needed now. Ji-won sat in the captain's seat. It felt right. It felt like home. For the first time in years, something felt right. Run the checklist, she said. I want to know what works and what doesn't. Boram's fingers flew across the controls. Numbers and data filled the screens. Hana checked life support systems. Dae Ho inspected weapons, though they weren't supposed to have any. Old cargo ships were meant to be unarmed. Hours passed. Min-ho came back up from the engine room. His face was strange. Excited and scared at the same time, Captain, he said quietly. You need to come see this. They followed him down into the ship's belly, past cargo holds, past crew quarters, down to the reactor room. Min-ho pointed at a panel on the wall. It looked normal, just another maintenance access. Look at the power distribution, Min-ho said. He pulled up a hologram. Lines of energy flowing through the ship. Most of it went to engines and life support, but some of it went somewhere else. Somewhere hidden. What am I looking at? Ji-won asked. Weapon capacitors, Min-ho whispered. Big ones. Hidden in the ship's frame. This isn't a cargo hauler, Captain. This is a warship. The crew went silent. Ji-won stared at the hologram. Her mind raced back 30 years. Back to secret meetings and classified projects. Back when Earth wasn't sure if joining the Galactic Council was safe. Back when humans prepared for the worst, she had been there. She had helped design this ship. The Council said we had to disarm, Boram said. All human military ships were supposed to be scrapped or converted. They were, Ji-won said slowly. Except for this one, we hid it. Built it to look like a cargo ship, just in case we needed it someday. Needed it for what? Hana asked. Before Jiwan could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice spoke in multiple languages. Emergency. All ships prepare for lockdown. Unidentified fleet approaching. The crew ran back to the bridge. Borum pulled up the sensor data. Her face went pale. 300 contacts, she said. Military grade. Dralthian signatures. Hana pulled up the communications. She listened to the chatter from the station. Her hands shook. The council is calling it a diplomatic envoy, Hana said. But the Dralthians are in battle formation. This isn't a negotiation. This is an invasion. What's Earth's defense status? Deho asked. Borum checked. Then checked again. Then looked up with horror in her eyes. Nothing, she whispered. Earth has no military ships in orbit. The council ordered them all to the outer colonies. We're defenseless. G1 stood at the viewport. She looked out at the Dralthian fleet. 300 ships against one old cargo hauler. No, not a cargo hauler. A warship, hidden, waiting, for exactly this moment. She turned to her crew. All of them looked at her. Waiting for orders. We have a choice, G1 said. We can undock. Fly to the breakers. Collect our pay. Let someone else handle this. Nobody moved. Or, Minyo asked. G1 smiled. It was not a nice smile. Or we wake up this sleeping beast and remind the galaxy why they should never underestimate humans. Deho cracked his knuckles. Borum pulled up weapon systems she didn't know existed. Hana closed her medical kit and opened a tactical manual instead. Minyo was already running back to the engine room, laughing like a maniac. One by one, they all stayed. Because running was logical. Running was smart. Running was what anyone else would do, but they were human. And humans don't run. The Resilience's engines roared to life. The old ship shook as power flooded through systems that hadn't been used in decades. Warning lights turned green. Weapon batteries charged. The beast was waking up. Jiwan sat in the captain's chair and opened a channel to the Dralthian fleet. This is Captain Jiwan Park of the Earthship Resilience. You came to my home. Big mistake. Let me show you what happens when you pick a fight with humans. The Resilience moved through the dark between Mars and Jupiter. Around them, space was silent and empty. Inside the ship, nothing was silent. Alarms rang. People shouted. Metal groaned as old systems came back to life. Minho lived in the engine room now. He barely slept. His hands were always covered in grease and burns. Every system he touched had been dormant for decades. Waking them up was like performing surgery on a sleeping giant. Reactor core is stable, he shouted into his communicator. But the weapon systems are another story. These things were never properly tested. On the bridge, Jiwan studied old military files. The blueprints were incomplete. Sections were redacted. Whole systems were marked with warnings in red letters. The words made her nervous, experimental, unstable. Use only as last resort. Borum worked at the navigation station. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She was teaching herself how to fly a warship using manuals written before she was born. The controls were different from modern ships. Everything was manual. Everything required thinking. I found something. Minho's voice crackled over the comm. You all need to see this now. They gathered in the weapons bay. Minho stood in front of a massive piece of machinery. It was buried deep in the ship's core, hidden behind false walls and dummy systems. The device was 20 meters long and hummed with power. What is it? Hana asked. Minho pulled up a holographic display. Math and physics equations filled the air. Most of it made no sense to anyone except him. It's called a kinetic implosion drive, Minho said. His voice shook with excitement and fear. It creates localized gravity wells. Artificial black holes that last for a few seconds. In simple words. Deho asked. It makes things disappear, Minho said. Ships, asteroids, anything caught in the field just ceases to exist. Crushed down to nothing. The crew stared at the weapon. It looked wrong. Like something that shouldn't exist. The metal was darker than it should be. The air around it felt heavy. The Galactic Council banned this technology before it was ever used, Jiwan said quietly. They said it was too dangerous. Too powerful. A weapon like this could crack a planet. Can we fire it? Borum asked. Theoretically, Minho said. But I need to test it first. On something big, they found an asteroid. 2 kilometers wide. Floating alone in the dark, Borum positioned the Resilience at a safe distance. The crew gathered on the bridge to watch. Minho sat at the weapons console. His hands hovered over the controls. He took a deep breath. Charging the drive, he said. A sound filled the ship. Not quite mechanical. Not quite organic. It felt wrong in a way that made their teeth hurt. The lights dimmed as power drained from other systems. The weapon was hungry. Numbers climbed on Minho's screen. 50%, 70%, 90%. The ship shook. Warning alarms sang. Firing, Minho whispered. Space itself seemed to bend. The asteroid grew dark. Not shadowed, but truly dark, as if light couldn't reach it anymore. Then it began to shrink, faster and faster. The 2-kilometer rock compressed down to the size of a house. Then a car. Then a basketball, then nothing. The asteroid was gone. Not destroyed. Not broken apart, just gone. Erased from existence, nobody spoke for a long moment. We're flying a death machine, Borum said softly. No, Jiwan said. We're flying hope. The only hope Earth has. They trained every day after that. Deho drilled his small marine unit in boarding tactics. They practiced in the cargo bays, running through scenarios, hand-to-hand combat, weapons training. The Marines were few, but they were ready to fight. Hana studied Dralthian culture and psychology. She read every report she could find. The Dralthians were warriors. They valued honor above survival. They would rather die than retreat. She realized this was both their strength and their weakness. If we can make them angry, Hana told Jiwan, we can make them predictable. Anger makes people stupid. Borum practiced flying the resilience through asteroid fields. The ship was huge and slow compared to modern vessels. But it was also tough. She learned to use that. Let smaller ships chase them into narrow spaces. Let them think they had the advantage. Then crush them against rocks. 3 weeks into their journey, they encountered their first enemy, a Dralthian scout ship, small and fast. It appeared on their sensors like a ghost. They've seen us, Borum said. They're scanning. Jiwan made a decision. They could run, but running would accomplish nothing. Better to fight now. Learn what their weapons could do. Battle stations, she ordered. Minho, charge the railguns only. I want to save the big gun for later. The Dralthian ship came in fast. It fired first. Energy weapons bright and hot. The beams hit the Resilience's hull and scattered. The thick titanium armor absorbed the hits easily. The scout ship's weapons were designed to pierce modern energy shields. Against old-fashioned metal, they were almost useless. The Resilience fired back. Railguns thundered. Solid metal slugs moving at impossible speeds. No energy, no plasma. Just physics and violence. The first shot missed. The second shot clipped the scout ship's engine. The third shot went straight through its hull. The alien ship tried to turn, tried to run. It never got the chance. The fourth shot ended it. The scout ship broke apart in silence. Debris scattered across space. Did we get it before it transmitted? Jiwan asked. Borum checked the logs. Her face fell. No, it sent a message before we destroyed it. The main fleet knows we're here. Jiwan nodded slowly. Good, let them know. Let them come. That night the crew gathered in the mess hall. They were quiet. The reality of what they were doing had finally hit them. One ship against hundreds. The odds were impossible. Deho broke the silence. He stood up with his drink. You know what's great about impossible odds? He said, nobody expects you to win. So when you do, it really pisses them off. Minho laughed. Then Hana. Then Borum. Soon they were all laughing. It wasn't funny, but they laughed anyway. Because what else could they do? Jiwan looked at her crew. These broken people. These misfits and outcasts. They were everything the galaxy thought humans were. Reckless, stubborn. Too dumb to know when they were beaten. She was proud of every single one of them. Get some sleep, Jiwan said. Tomorrow we see what we're really made of. In his command ship, Fleet Master Vorthak received the scout's final transmission. He watched the recording of the old human vessel. It looked like scrap metal. Ancient technology. Nothing to fear. His officers laughed when they saw it. One ship? The humans were sending one ship? Vorthak smiled. This would be over quickly. He would destroy this insult of a ship and then take Earth. The humans would learn their place in the galaxy. At the bottom, he ordered 50 ships to intercept and destroy the human vessel. 50 ships against one. It was overkill. It was perfect. It would send a message. Nobody challenges the Dralthian Empire and lives. The Dralthian fleet waited near Neptune. 300 ships in perfect formation. A wall of steel and weapons blocking the path to Earth. They looked beautiful and terrible. Each ship was sleek and new. covered in weapons that could destroy cities. The resilience appeared on their sensors like a ghost from the past, old, slow, alone. The Dralthian commanders looked at their screens and laughed. On the bridge of the resilience, G1 opened all communication channels. Every ship in the system would hear this. Every alien. Every human. She wanted everyone to hear what came next. "This is Captain G1 Park of the Earth vessel Resilience," she said. Her voice was cold and hard. "I see you brought 300 ships to fight one old cargo hauler. Are you scared? You should be." The Dralthian command channel exploded with angry voices. "How dare a human speak to them this way?" Fleetmaster Vorthak silenced them all. "Human," Vorthak replied. "You will die slowly for that insult. I will enjoy watching your ship burn." "Big talk from someone hiding behind an army," G1 said. "Come on then. Let me show you why humans don't surrender." She closed the channel. The trap was set. Hana had been right about Dralthian psychology. Their honor demanded they respond to insults. They had to answer challenges or lose face. "He's taking the bait," Borum said, watching her sensors. 50 ships breaking formation. Coming right at us, perfect. Exactly 50. Not the full fleet. Just enough to overwhelm one ship. Or so they thought. "All hands to battle stations," Jiwan ordered. "Mino, charge everything. We're going to make this hurt." The Dralthian ships came in fast and confident. They surrounded the resilience in a sphere, cutting off all escape. Energy weapons charged. Missile tubes loaded. This would be quick and brutal. They fired first. 50 ships unleashing hell. Energy beams and plasma bolts struck the resilience from every direction. The old ship shook. Alarms screamed. But the hull held. The thick titanium armor, primitive by modern standards, simply absorbed the punishment. The Dralthians had optimized their weapons for shield penetration. They expected thin hulls protected by energy barriers. Instead, they got solid metal. Lots of it. "Their weapons are barely scratching us," Borum reported, shocked. "The armor is holding." "Now," G1 said. "Show them what we brought." The resilience opened fire. Railgun batteries thundered to life. Ancient weapons, crude and simple. No fancy energy matrices. No plasma conduits. Just metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The first Dralthian ship never knew what hit it. The railgun round punched straight through its energy shields like they were made of paper. The slug tore through the hull, through the reactor, and out the other side. The ship exploded in a beautiful flower of light and debris. More railguns fired. More ships died. The Dralthians tried to adapt, tried to dodge, but the resilience was firing from every angle. Daeho and his Marines manned secondary weapons, adding to the storm of metal. "Nuclear missiles away," Minho called out. The Dralthians saw the nuclear signatures and almost laughed. Nuclear weapons? Those were ancient, primitive. Their shields could handle nuclear explosions easily. Then the missiles detonated, not as explosions but as electromagnetic pulses, EMP bursts designed specifically to overload energy shields. The pattern was perfect, timed to cascade through the Dralthian formation. Shields flickered and died across 20 ships. For just 3 seconds they were exposed, vulnerable. 3 seconds was more than enough. The resilience poured railgun fire into the unprotected ships. Metal met metal. No shields to slow the impacts. The Dralthian vessels came apart like toys. The survivors tried to retreat. They turned and burned their engines, desperate to escape. Vorthak was screaming orders over the comm, demanding they stand and fight. But fear had replaced honor. "The big gun is ready," Minho said quietly. His hands trembled on the controls. "Should I fire?" Jiwan looked at the fleeing ships. They were running. The smart move would be to let them go. Save the weapon for the main fleet. But this was about more than tactics. This was about sending a message. "Fire," she said. The kinetic implosion drive activated. The horrible sound filled the ship again. Power drained from every system. The lights went dark. Only emergency lighting remained. Space itself changed. A sphere of darkness appeared around one of the fleeing Dralthian cruisers. Not shadow, true darkness. The absence of everything. Light bent inward, drawn toward an impossible point. The cruiser tried to escape. Its engines flared bright. But gravity doesn't care about engines. The ship began to compress. Metal screamed and tore. The vessel folded in on itself like paper being crumpled. 3 other ships were caught in the gravitational backwash. They were pulled toward the implosion point, spiraling inward. Their hulls cracked and split. Then they too began to compress. In 5 seconds it was over. 4 Dralthian ships simply ceased to exist. No debris, no wreckage. Just empty space where they had been. The remaining ships didn't slow down. They ran, fast and far. On the bridge of the Resilience, nobody moved. They had just watched their weapon erase 4 ships from reality. The power was terrifying. "Damage report," Jiwon said, breaking the silence. "Hull breaches in sections 7, 12, and 19, Minho said. "We have casualties. Engineering teams are sealing the breaches now." "How many dead?" Jiwon asked. 3, Daeho said quietly. "Good people, Marines, they died at their posts." Jiwon closed her eyes. 3 lives, too many. But thousands lived because of what they had done here. The math was cold. War was always cold. "We need to move," Borum said. "Vorthak still has 250 ships. He'll come with everything next time." "Let him come," Jiwon said. "Minho, how long until the weapon can fire again?" 2 hours minimum, Minho said. "The reactor needs to cool down. And Captain, I need to tell you something. That weapon is destroying the ship. Every time we fire it, we risk tearing ourselves apart. We can maybe fire it twice more, maybe." Jiwon nodded. 2 more shots. They had to make them count. Across the system, news of the battle spread. The Galactic Council watched the recordings in shock. A single human ship had destroyed 47 Dralthian vessels. 47, it was impossible. It was terrifying. Ambassador Thelric demanded answers. Where had the humans gotten such weapons? They had agreed to disarm. They had signed treaties. This was a violation of everything. But other species were quiet, thoughtful. If humans had hidden one warship, what else were they hiding? Maybe humans were more dangerous than anyone realized. In his command ship, Vorthak stared at battle reports. He read the numbers again and again. 47 ships lost, against 1 enemy, 1 old human vessel. His advisors urged caution, retreat, regroup, study this new threat. But Vorthak's honor was wounded. His pride was broken. The humans had made him look like a fool. "Gather the entire fleet," he ordered. "All ships. We will crush this human insect together. No more games. No more honor duels. We attack with everything." 250 warships began to move, all of them heading toward one target. The Resilience had won the first battle, but the real war was just beginning. The Resilience limped through the asteroid fields near Saturn. Debris trailed behind them. Atmosphere vented from sealed hull breaches. The ship looked wounded because it was wounded, but it was still flying. Behind them, the entire Dralthian fleet gave chase. 250 ships moving in perfect coordination. They had learned from their mistakes. No more small groups. No more underestimating the humans. This time they would overwhelm with numbers. "They are gaining on us," Borum said. Her hands moved across the navigation controls without pause. She was exhausted. They all were, but stopping meant dying. "How long until we reach the asteroid belt?" Jiwon asked. 10 minutes, Borum replied. "But they will catch us before then." "They are faster than us." In the engine room, Minho worked like a madman. Sweat poured down his face. His hands were burned from touching hot metal. The reactor was failing. Systems were breaking down faster than he could fix them. "Captain," he called over the comm, "the reactor is critical. Someone needs to stay in the core room to manually regulate the flow. Otherwise, we are going to explode in the next hour." On the bridge, everyone went quiet. They all understood what Minho was saying. Someone had to stay behind. Someone had to die so the rest could live. "I will do it," Daeho said. He stood up from his weapon station. "I have lived a long life. A good life. This is a good way to end it." "No," Jiwon said firmly. "We are not leaving anyone behind." "Minho, there has to be another way." "I am working on it," Minho said. "But I need time we do not have." Hana had been quiet, studying her screens. Now she looked up with an idea forming in her eyes. "What if we make them think we are about to explode?" Hana said. "The Dralthians value honor and glory. They will want to capture our ship intact, bring it home as a prize. If they think we are going to blow up, they will try to board us instead of destroying us." Jiwon turned to look at her. The plan was insane, but insane was all they had left. "Borum, can you fake a reactor breach?" Jiwon asked. "Easily," Borum said. "I can make it look like we are going critical. They will see it on their sensors." "Do it," Jiwon ordered. "Daeho, get your Marines ready. If they board us, we turn this ship into a nightmare." Daeho smiled. It was a terrible smile. This was what he was born for. Close combat. Fighting in narrow corridors where numbers meant nothing. Where humans were at their most dangerous, Borum manipulated the reactor readings. To any ship scanning them, it would look like the resilience was minutes from exploding. Power fluctuations, containment failures, all the signs of imminent death. The Drouthian fleet saw the readings. Vorthak studied the data. His tactical officer confirmed it. The human ship was dying on its own. Send boarding teams, Vorthak ordered. I want that ship captured. I want the crew alive. They will answer for what they have done. 20 Drouthian ships broke formation and closed on the Resilience. Boarding pods launched. Magnetic clamps attached to the hull. Cutting torches began slicing through the outer armor. Inside the Resilience, Deho and his Marines waited in the darkness. They had cut the power to the lower decks. Only emergency lights glowed, casting red shadows. The Marines wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed for close range. Shotguns, combat knives, weapons that worked when you could see your enemy. The first breach opened in Cargo Bay 3. Drouthian shock troops poured through. They were big, 7 feet tall and covered in scales. Their armor was advanced. Their weapons could punch through walls. They expected frightened humans. Civilians running and begging for mercy. Instead, they found a killing ground. The Marines opened fire from hidden positions. Shotgun blasts in narrow corridors are devastating. The Drouthians had no room to maneuver. Their advanced weapons meant nothing at 5 meters. They fell, confused and dying. More breach points opened. More Drouthian troops entered. But every corridor was a trap. Every junction was a death funnel. The humans knew this ship. They had trained here for weeks. This was their home and they defended it with savage efficiency. Deho moved through the darkness like a ghost. His combat knife found gaps in Drouthian armor with practiced precision. Behind the eye ridge, under the arm, through the neck seal. He had fought aliens before. He knew where they were vulnerable. On the bridge, Borum worked at her station. While the Drouthians focused on the boarding action, she was doing something else. Something dangerous. She was hacking into the Drouthian command ship. It was insane. Drouthian security systems were supposed to be unbreakable, but Borum had studied them for weeks. She knew their protocols. She knew their backdoors. More importantly, she knew they would never expect a dying ship to launch a cyber attack. Her fingers danced across holographic displays. Lines of code flowed. She was in their communication system, then their navigation, then their weapons control. She didn't try to take over. That would trigger alarms. She just planted a virus, a small one. It would activate in exactly 90 seconds. All it would do is shut down their weapons for 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds. But 30 seconds could change everything. Virus uploaded, Borum whispered. Captain, we have 90 seconds. G1 checked the status of their weapon. The kinetic implosion drive was charged. Barely. The reactor was screaming in protest, but it was ready. Minho, I need one more shot from the big gun, G1 said. Can you give it to me? Silence on the comm. Then Minho's voice, tired and scared. Yes, one more shot. But Captain, the reactor will breach. This ship will tear itself. Move fast, move smart. It has been an honor serving with you. Down in the cargo bays, Deho heard the order. He looked at his Marines. They were covered in blood, breathing hard. They had held the line. Fall back to the escape pods, Deho ordered. Fighting retreat. Make them pay for every meter. The Marines moved, slowly, carefully, still fighting, still killing. They would not give the Drouthians an easy victory. On the Drouthian command ship, weapons officers started seeing error messages. Systems were offline. They tried to restart them. Nothing worked. Confusion spread through the bridge. Vorthak stared at his displays in horror. All weapons. Every single one offline, simultaneously. It was a trap. It had always been a trap. On the Resilience, G1 sat in her captain's chair one last time. She looked out at the Drouthian fleet, at Vorthak's command ship sitting there helpless. She thought about Earth, about humans, about everything they had fought for. Minho, she said quietly, fire everything. The kinetic implosion drive activated one final time. The ship screamed. Metal tore. The reactor began to fail, but for 5 seconds the weapon worked perfectly. Space folded around Vorthak's command ship. The massive vessel began to compress. The fleetmaster had time for one last thought. He had underestimated humans. He would not make that mistake again, but there would be no again. The command ship imploded. Dozens of nearby vessels were caught in the gravity well. They spiraled inward, breaking apart, dying. When it was over, a third of the Drelthian fleet was gone. The survivors scattered in panic. No orders, no commander. No will to fight. They just ran. Inside the dying Resilience, alarms shrieked. The crew ran for the escape pods. Behind them, their ship was tearing itself apart. But they had done it. Against impossible odds, one old cargo hauler had broken an invasion fleet apart. We need to evacuate immediately after firing. Understood, Jiwan said. She opened ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. After the next shot, we abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. The escape pods scattered into space like seeds on the wind. Behind them, the Resilience tore itself apart. Explosions bloomed along the hull. The reactor finally gave up, releasing decades of stored energy in one brilliant flash. The ship that had saved Earth died in fire and light. Jiwan watched from her pod. She had been the last to leave, as any good captain should be. Her hand pressed against the small window. Goodbye, old friend. You were everything we needed. Other pods drifted nearby. The crew had survived. Not all of them. 3 Marines lost in the boarding action. 2 engineers caught in the reactor breach. 5 good people who would never see Earth again. But 32 had made it out. Against all odds, most of them lived. Minho's voice crackled over the emergency channel.
Captain, we have incoming contacts.
Multiple signatures. Human signatures. Ships appeared from all directions. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Military cruisers, civilian transports, mining vessels, personal yachts. Every human in the solar system who could fly had come. They had seen what the Resilience did. They would not let the crew die. The rescue ships moved among the pods, collecting survivors. Jiwan felt her pod lock into a docking clamp. The hatch opened. Strong hands pulled her inside. A young pilot, maybe 20 years old, looked at her with tears in his eyes. Captain Park, the pilot said, "You saved us all." "Thank you." Jiwan could not speak. Her throat was too tight. She just nodded and let herself be led to the medical bay. The crew reunited on a military transport heading back to Earth. They were dirty and injured and exhausted. But they were alive. They sat in the cargo bay, not saying much. Just being together, knowing what they had done. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. The recordings were everywhere. 1 human ship against 300. The impossible victory. The weapon that made ships disappear. Fear and respect spread in equal measure. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Thelric stood before them demanding justice. The humans had violated treaties. They had hidden weapons of mass destruction. They must be punished. But the other species were quiet, thoughtful, nervous. If one old ship could do this much damage, what could Earth do if truly threatened? Maybe humanity was more dangerous than anyone realized. Maybe pushing them was a bad idea. 6 months later, Earth orbit was different. New ships floated there. Human military vessels, no longer hidden. The Council had demanded they be destroyed. Earth had politely refused. The debate was still ongoing. Jiwan stood in front of a tall building in the capital city. The military headquarters. They had called her here for a ceremony. She wore a new uniform, clean and pressed. It felt strange after months of grease and blood. Inside, generals and politicians waited. They wanted to give her medals, restore her rank, make her an admiral again, put her in charge of Earth's new fleet. Jiwan listened to their offer. Then she said no. The generals were confused. This was an honor. A chance to serve again. Why would she refuse? "I served my whole life," Jiwan said simply. "I gave everything to the fleet. They threw me away when it was convenient. The Resilience needed me. Earth needed me," I answered. "But I am done taking orders from people who were not there." She walked out. Later, they offered her a bar. A real one, with actual money and a license. Compensation for saving Earth. She took it. Not because she wanted to run a bar, but because it felt right. The other crew members scattered to new lives. Minho joined the engineering academy, teaching the next generation how to build weapons the galaxy could not imagine. His classes were always full. Students hung on every word. Borum started a security company. Everyone wanted to hire the woman who hacked a Drothian command ship. She was rich within months and famous within a year. She still kept her old datapad from the Resilience. Good luck, charm. Hana went to work for Earth's diplomatic service. They needed someone who understood aliens, someone who could predict how they would react. She was good at it. better than she ever expected. She helped negotiate 3 peace treaties in her first year. Deho trained Special Forces soldiers. He created the most feared close combat unit in human space. Other species whispered about them, the humans who fight like demons in the dark, the soldiers who never retreat. 1 year after the battle, they all met at Jiwan's bar. It was a tradition now, the anniversary of the day they chose to fight. The bar was closed to other customers. Just the crew. Just family. They sat around a table drinking and telling stories. Some were true, some were exaggerated. All of them were important. These were the stories that kept them connected. A young woman approached their table. She wore a military uniform, ensign rank. Fresh from the academy, she looked nervous. "Captain Park?" The young woman asked. "I am sorry to interrupt. My name is Minji Song. I just wanted to say thank you. I joined the fleet because of you, because of what you did." Jiwan looked at her, this young woman with hope in her eyes. She reminded Jiwan of herself decades ago, ready to take on the galaxy. "What is your assignment?" Jiwan asked. "The new Earth Defense Fleet," Minji said proudly. "I will be stationed on the Sol, one of the new carriers." Jiwan smiled. The Sol, named after a city on Earth, human names for human ships. The galaxy was learning. "Sit down," Jiwan said, pulling out a chair. "Let me tell you the real secret about what we did. It was not the weapon. It was not the ship. It was us. We won because we are human." Minji sat, listening carefully. "Other species know when to quit," Jiwan continued. "They understand odds. They respect probability. We do not. We look at impossible situations and we try anyway. We are too stubborn to accept defeat, too angry to lie down and die. That is our secret weapon." The crew nodded. Minho raised his glass. "To being too stupid to quit," he said. "To being human," Hana added. They drank together. The crew of the Resilience. The people who faced impossible odds and won, not because they were special, not because they were heroes, but because they were human, and humans do not surrender. 5 years passed. Earth's status in the galaxy changed completely. The Council still complained about treaty violations, but they did not push too hard. Nobody wanted to fight humans. Not after what one old ship had done. The wreckage of the Resilience was recovered and brought back to Earth. It floated in a memorial orbit, a monument to those who fought. But there were rumors, whispers in military circles. The ship was being rebuilt, made stronger. Given new weapons, the Council sent inspectors. Earth's government gave them bureaucratic runarounds. Forms to fill out. Permits needed. Clearances required. The delays went on for months, years. If the humans were hiding something, they learned from the best. From the aliens themselves. How to work the system, how to delay and obstruct, how to hide in plain sight. In Jiwan's bar, the crew gathered for their 5th anniversary. More people joined them now. Other veterans, young officers, people who wanted to hear the stories. Jiwan looked around at the crowd, at the hope in their faces, at the pride in their eyes. Earth had survived. Humanity had proven itself. Not through diplomacy or trade, through pure stubborn defiance. She raised her glass to the stars visible through the window. "To the Resilience," she said. "The ship they told us to scrap. The ship that saved us all." Everyone drank. The toast echoed through the bar, through Earth, through human space. Somewhere in the orbital shipyards, workers moved around the skeleton of an old ship, welding, rebuilding, installing new systems. The Resilience was not dead. It was sleeping, waiting for the day it would be needed again. Because that was the real lesson of the battle. The galaxy had pushed humans too far, treated them like weaklings, like second-class citizens. They would not make that mistake again. Humans remember, humans prepare, and when the next threat came, they would be ready. With old ships and new weapons, with stubborn crews and impossible plans, they would face it the only way humans knew how. Together, defiant, refusing to accept defeat, because in the end, that was what it meant to be human. Not the smartest, not the strongest, not the most advanced, just the ones too stubborn to quit. The species that looked at impossible odds and said one word, "Try me."